what we've really come to understand is it's the hand action that actually drives.
If you have good hands, you know what to do with your hands. So much works back into the body, and the golfer they're empowered when they know how to use their hands properly. Gentlemen, great to be with you. Peter, it's a pleasure, pal. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks Chris, thanks Martin, and it will be great to be here. Just a little mention there, Martin has probably the #1 golf school in Arizona. There are a lot of golf schools there, but you've been rated #1, so that's nice to be in your school today. Okay.
Well, that's where we're saying. We're sending my studio here. This is where I subject all my students to some coaching from the range outside and then in here. But, you know, I'm really excited to get down to the brass tacks of having great hands in golf. It's so overlooked. And, you know, just a brief story for those watching. Peter has been a mentor coach of mine for years. I met him and I want to say in the mid-90s. He came to Southern California when I was a teaching pro, or I was a director of golf actually, and there was an education seminar in Southern California teaching PGA. And so I went to the seminar and I was really impressed with the presentation because it wasn't just subjective conjecture that he was expounding. There was really thought and a lot of great information that made me seek him out after the presentation and spend more time with him. And it's been a great friendship, Peter. I'm grateful to know you. And I've used, and I am lucky to share a lot of the stuff that I've learned from a lot of mentors, a lot of great coaches around the world. And I think that's the best thing about coaching, open-minded coaches. And, you know, I thank you a lot for that.
Yeah, well, me too, Martin. It's great to work with you. And again, in the journey, I've met a lot of great coaches, and we share ideas. But the biggest idea comes really back to making the hands basically the source of motion in the golf swing, which means in our program you need to really understand how the hands work and how they not only will control the club ultimately the best, but they'll also control the way your arms and your body are going to move. So that's what we're here to share with our audience. I think
for sure
it's revolutionary, really, when you go back to the hands. There's a lot of talk about other, like the ground forces and how the body works, but what we've really come to understand is it's the hand action that actually drives the lot if you do it properly and you got more control as well as the power. So,
well, you know, just to kind of jump in there, I'll say to people when I start my golf school, I'll take 3 golf balls, and you know, I'll say invite somebody to come up to the front of the class, and I'll juggle 3 golf balls. And to do that, right, to get 3 golf balls cascading, there's a lot going on there that's conscious and subconscious behavior. And people take for granted how important it is to get your hands on the club nicely and to educate your hands, because I'd be honest in saying that probably 8 out of 10 people that come to my golf school, maybe they played golf for a long time, they still have an issue getting their hands on properly. When they have an issue getting their hands on properly, learning how to hit these critical impact strikes, those little cornerstone strikes, it makes it so much harder. So, you know, stuff I've learned from you and how to convey the message, and how, like you say, if you have good hands, you know what to do with your hands. So much works back into the body, and the golfer they're empowered when they know how to use their hands properly.
Correctly, yeah. I think that's important, but let's really dive into exactly how we should put the hands on the club, because there are a lot of different ways you can do this, but we've discovered that if you do it in the way we're going to show you here, then you can really get control over the club and the impact zone, which is the moment of truth. So really, if you want to get better in golf, the first thing to look at is getting your grip and your setup right, and then getting to understand what causes you to control, the golf club, and then ultimately the golf ball. So,
hey, Peter, in a pause for a moment, you know, for the viewers, take a good look at the photographs of the hands there, the beautiful imagery on the right side of the screen. The image in the top left of the hands, we're gonna get into this quite a bit, but I want people to have a nice mental picture of that left wrist they're looking at, that lead hand right there, and what they see when they look down, because that's a huge part of being able to really get through this webinar in the next hour and be great at it. So sorry to cut you off there, but I want people to really think about that picture.
Definitely. Yeah, no, the question is basically, it's the hands that are going to be ultimately in control. So you better put them on there properly, and that left hand there's a certain position of the club that allows you to put the hand on the club properly, and it's when that club shaft is, if you're standing upright like this, then the club shaft's horizontal, and then the grip of the club points at your belt buckle. It's not out here. That's, your hands would be too far away from your body, and definitely not too close to be too cramped up. But when it's about opposite your belt buckle, that's the place where you can really assemble your grip if you're going to revisit putting the hands on the club properly. And I think what's an important point here, if I come up close, I've made an X on the top of the wrist here. There's like a hinge pin through your wrist. If everyone in the audience grabs their wrist and they can feel the hinge, this, oops, basically goes backwards and forwards. Now, you want that hinge pin directly on the top of the grip. And if you want to hit a straightaway shot, you want the club face leading edge to be parallel with that. You don't want to have your hand over here. Otherwise, when you come through, it'll be like that. You'll hit a ball to the left. Conversely, I see a lot of golfers that come along, they tend to grip it more in the palm and then their wrist is in front of the grip. I think that's really important that you grip it across the fingers. I've got the hand marked up here so you can see the grip of the club runs across your hand, across the fingers, around. Then it allows for the wrist to be right on top of the grip. So you got, now it's in that shake hands position. I think Ben Hogan said it well.
I couldn't agree more there. You know, jumping in on that is that I think, well, Peter, a lot of people grip the golf club for comfort rather than function. And I know you and I both believe that if you have the proper, function, the comfort will come from that. So for those watching this, please, please, please don't go, people are just talking about grip again. Take this stuff seriously, because this is going to be much sense.
Yeah, when you got the wrist in that condition, you hardly have to hang on at all. The club just wedges in the hand, so you can be very soft in your hands. You don't have to hang on that tight, and I think that's really key if you want to get feel and your power. Would you agree there, Martin?
Oh, completely. Just like you said, some people in the United States refer to it as snuff box. You call it the hinge pin, where that tendon of the thumb and the tendon of the index finger kind of come together. There's that little hollow at the top of your wrist right there. That snuff box. If you look down, that wrist joint should be pretty much exactly on top of the grip. And from the player's perspective, looking down, when you look down, you should be able to see a little mild bend back in that left hand, because that's going to allow you to have some of the benefits of that uncocking, some of the forward shaft lean that everybody wants, because that's going to give you the compression.
Correct. And that's really, then the other little element there with the left hand is your actual thumb location. I see there's a lot of debate about whether you should have a long thumb or a short thumb, and exactly where that left thumb is placed. Should it be in front, on top, or behind the grip? Well, we've found that if it's just back of center, and when you grip the club across the hand on that angle in the fingers, you'll find it's so easy to have what we call a short thumb, where the thumb pad is on the grip. And that gives you a lot more sensitivity of control of the club face. So short thumb versus long thumb, Martin. What's the benefit of short thumb, and what compare it with the long thumb when they get the hand?
Well, you brought a great point about the touch point of the thumb, relative to the grip. So as I kind of shove my thumb long and pull it back short, if it's long, you lose a lot of the contact of actually the sensitive part of the thumb, and so there's some more control that's inherent. Also, with the short thumb, it actually helps where we put our right hand, or trail hand for the lefties. Our trail hand can fit over that lead hand so much more nicely, just have a more efficient union of hands onto the grip. When the thumb's sticking down, sometimes you'll see, we'll see the occasional good player with a longer thumb sticking out between their, thumb and index finger, their trail hand. But for the most part, the most efficient grips tend to be short thumb golfers with the lead hand the glove hand and the trail hand.
Yeah, just a little extra on that thumb position. When you've got a long thumb, there's a tendency that you get tension in those outside muscles of the forearm, whereas a short thumb, it's a lot less stress, and you get to actually activate the inside muscles. And that Ben Hogan made a big point about good golf. You want the inside muscles to be working, not the outside ones. So the short thumb promotes the access to the inside muscles in your left arm. And of course, when we go to the other side, we'll have the marrying up will be the short thumb on the right hand too. But what do you think about the right hand location on the club, Martin? It's putting that on the club is very important, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people they get 1 foot in the in a bad spot right away because of how they were taught to grip the club initially. One of my big pet peeves is a joke. I can't stand litter, and I can't stand an interlocking grip that's taught poorly. And the way you teach a grip is very simple and efficient. But a lot of people watching this webinar, they're already past that because they've already been down the road of interlocking an index finger and a pinky finger too deeply. If I walk up closer to my webinar camera, it's too deeply, and then they can't really get the fingers. They can't really get the grip in the fingers of the trail hand. You should be able to hold the golf club, pretty much in the fingers of the trail hand as I'm demonstrating right here. And then you have all that palm of the trail hand available to thumb. So, I mean, having a really nice pair of golf hands that's efficient for great impact alignments can be done if you give it a little bit of thought. And again, we're gripping not necessarily for comfort, but for function. And when you have some function, the comfort will come. It'll come quick, and it'll be way more effective.
Correct. And what I've got is I've marked my hand up so that that line across there is the second knuckle joint. That goes directly underneath the grip. And you'll see I've got a number 1 printed up here on my 2 middle fingers. And I have a number 1 up at the top of the lifeline of the right hand there, right at the wrist area. So what's going to happen, I take my hands together, I've got a number 1 marked on the second knuckle joint of my thumb. That X there and the other X on the right hand, they're going to fit together. So when they fit together, they really connect, and you'll have good 2 hands working as one. But to do that, it's really important that what you said there, Martin, you don't want to grip it at the base of the fingers. You want to make sure that second knuckle joint's right underneath the grip. And if you wrap the fingers, those middle 2 fingers around first, whether you're using the overlapping or the interlocking or baseball, you wrap those middle 2 fingers around first, and then you drop the right hand down so the lifeline of the right hand covers that left thumb and really fits right in there snug. The 2 hands become like 1 unit now.
Yeah, that looks fantastic. And I always say that, the placement of the right thumb, the lead thumb, the left thumb for me is in the top right quadrant of the grip. And then my right thumb, my trail thumb, is restfully on the top left quadrant of the grip. And, the 2 short thumb conditions. Another little factor I like to show people is the part of my hand closest to the club head isn't my thumb, it's my index finger. So that little nugget's very nice because that puts the club in a position where it has something to rest on when you get into transition. When we get into the meat of this webinar, which is great impact alignments, we have to go through this grip. We have to go through the grip details first, because if you don't have that, the rest of it doesn't make any sense and you can't do it properly. We want to give you the right details so you can really feel crisp strikes and the enjoyment that comes from that.
Exactly. When your 2 hands are together and they're aligned with the club face leading edge, then basically everything becomes 1 unit. And as you said, it's you've got much more chance of swinging the club to create that impact, that solid impact zone.
Excellent.
So, yeah. So anything else to add to the grip before we start to move into how to use the hands, Martin, do you think?
I'm sure I'm overlooking some things, Peter, but, generally I think I'd like to get into the sense of a lesson from my other mentor, my primary mentor, George Knudsen, in that, he taught me never to ever let the club rest on the ground. I never rest the club on the ground, because when I keep the club in the air, guess what I can feel? I can move the weight of the club in a waggle. I think a waggle is something people don't pay enough attention to these days. And you create a better measure of the triangle of your arms at address. People always say to me, Martin, I can't relax when the club is off the ground. I say, well, you know, people like to rest the club solo on the ground, rest it on the ground, then they have to they milk the grip, Peter, then they have to snatch it to take it back. I'd much rather they learn how to waggle properly. They can tap the mat or they can tap the grass, but let's create that structure so that they feel the weight of the club in their hands, find the radius with a tap, and then from there they can have that crisp strike that has a better measure to the ground.
Yep. I've